Thank you, everybody, for joining us today for the industry update. We appreciate you getting on this call with us each week. As always, please mute your lines so that we can hear everybody clearly, and use the chat feature if you have some questions. We will address them at the end of the presentation. And with that, I am going to turn this over to John.
Thank you, Hope. Good morning and welcome all of you. Thanks for tuning in today, and happy St. Patrick's Day. I'm pleased that you've joined us today, but I do want to remind you that today's webinar is designed for the use and benefit of our restaurant, hotel, and travel and tourism members and friends, as well as other friends of PRLA. It's not designed as a press event, and it is off the record. We're always happy to talk with the press, and we will do so at any time, but not now. So if you're with the press, please disconnect. Speaking of the press, a lot of what we've been able to accomplish over the last year has been greatly bolstered by the some 10 billion impressions we've had in the press about the plight of our industry and the needs that we have both to get reopened and for financial assistance. We could not have done that job so well without our partners, our pro bono partners, Food Shelter Public Relations, which is a firm out of Philadelphia, but they work statewide, who has been our partner in getting the word out about the plight for our industry and the PRLA. So I hope that you'll consider, if you have any PR needs, checking out Food Shelter PR. They do a terrific job. It's one of the favorite agencies I've ever worked with personally. So with that, I'd like to introduce you to someone who you know very well, Melissa Bova, who will take it from here.
Hi, everyone. Happy St. Patrick's Day. I have to get festive for the day. In celebration of, obviously, a redhead's favorite holiday. And a year ago today is when we started our daily email updates that you all read with such fervor and excitement. I mean, I don't know how we can go through this webinar without everybody's favorite Irish drink of Jameson. So make sure you pour yourself some Jameson to celebrate the holiday, and let's get started with some festive updates. Federal reconciliation package, things are happening. The president did sign it. I need to adjust my camera. My headpiece is a little high. I'm ready for a horse race. The president did sign the $1.9 trillion reconciliation package. It does include all types of things that are going to be key to all of you. Those 1,400 stimulus checks are starting to be sent out now. So if you're eligible for the stimulus checks, you should be receiving them shortly. Unemployment compensation has been extended for about until September. It's an extra $300. So there is an unemployment supplement for your employees if they are still collecting unemployment. The RRF is part of that. That's that 28 billion restaurant recovery package that's included. It's kind of a smaller version of the $120 billion Restaurants Act. We have a ways to go in terms of the process for you to start receiving those funds. As I mentioned to you, I think in the past 2 weeks, it's based off of the Shuttered Venue Grant Program, which they are promising will be out within the next 2 weeks. But that bill was signed in December, and they're only now just starting to work through those grants. In the meantime, I am assuming many of you were one of the 7,000 people that participated on the National Restaurant Association's webinar that they had on Monday, which talked about the steps that you need to start taking if you want to apply for the RRF. It is not as simple or streamlined as the P3. It's not going to run through your bank, so it's a completely different program than the P3, which you are applying for right now. And to that end, please make sure if you are going for the second round of P3 to do that sooner than later. They did expand people that are eligible to apply. We do expect it to run out of money, and you will not see the RRF funds for months to come. But if you are planning to move forward with RRF, I urge you to watch the webinar on Monday. You will need to, and I'm going to give you a ton of acronyms, and don't ask me what they mean, but to begin the process of being able to receive grant money from the federal government, you will need to set up a DUNS account, D-U-N-S. And you can look all of this up. It's basically creating an account with the federal government to receive grant funds. But upon doing that, it will take about 2 days for you to be approved. After that, you will need to set up a SAMS account. Essentially, it is giving the federal government all the information they are going to need to determine if you're eligible for the RRF. These are things that you can do now if you want. You don't need to, but they will take time. The SAMS account will collect a ton of information, and you need to make sure the information you're putting into it is accurate. Because like I said, it's that information that you're submitting that's going to determine your eligibility for a restaurant grant from the federal government. To that end, upon creating the SAMS account, it's going to take about 2 weeks for you to get approved. You need to go through an entire process to set up the account. Upon approval, you need to send in a certified notarized letter. So there's a bunch of steps in this process that you can begin to do now in order to set up receiving that grant. So at minimum, watch that NRA webinar because it gives you an idea of the type of data you're going to need to provide. And like I said, you need to do this perfectly to make sure that this account is set up perfectly. If you already have a done setup or a SAMS account set up, you don't need to set up a new account because they have all of that information from you. But if you do not have any of those accounts set up with the federal government, you will need to set them up. And to that end, when you set up your SAMS account, make sure you are specifying that you are only setting it up to be registering for a grant. So that's the only process you're using the SAMS account for. So when you go to set up your account, you have a list of options to choose. You're going to do the selection saying that you are registering to receive a grant. So those are things that you can do now in terms of setting up for the RRF. And then beyond that, we're going to have even more updates from the National Restaurant Association pertaining to that grant program. Other pieces that were included in the reconciliation package that we were able to clarify last week. There is an extension of those paid leave credits, and there is a reset of those paid leave credits. And as you all remember, it's up to 10 days, 80 hours of paid leave. If your employee has COVID, needs to quarantine because of COVID, or they need to care for somebody who has COVID. It continues to be optional, but it resets the 10 days. So if you have an employee that took 10 days in 2020 to care for somebody or to quarantine for COVID, you are able to reimburse them if you so choose for another 10 days in 2021. So you get a brand new opportunity to deduct that in terms of being able to give your employees time off if they need it to deal with COVID. So that was a big part of that legislation for my friends in Pittsburgh, my friends in Philadelphia. Philadelphia sooner than later. You have an emergency paid leave requirement in your cities. So this allows you to provide that paid leave without any more funds coming out of pocket for you. So, but also throughout the entire state, I urge you to look at that. It's an opportunity to let your employees quarantine or recover from COVID if they need to. They can be paid for it, and you don't need to worry about any out-of-pocket expenses with that. Another huge part of this reconciliation package is we're starting to find out the funds that are coming down to our state and local governments. The state of Pennsylvania is receiving in total a little over 13 billion. So what will happen with this is it's not 13 billion they receive now, because you know when you give legislators money, they spend it all immediately. So they will get 50% within the next 60 days, 50% in 1 year from now. So they'll get about 6.5 billion, which will be probably figured out over the coming months to balance the budget and to be used for COVID recovery. So we'll be working with our state legislators. We'll be asking you to engage with your state legislators regarding where those funds should go. We believe, obviously, we need more recovery packages for the industry. We need to be promoting tourism. We need to bring tourists back to Pennsylvania. And we need to be providing more grant programs to those that weren't eligible. We're very familiar, because trust me, you've all been emailing me about it, for those that have not been included in the CHIRP grant program. So we are looking for other grant programs to help the industry. So stay tuned for all of that as those federal funds begin to come down. This is the last federal package we're going to see, maybe ever. We are going to continue to push for a refund of the RRF, more P3 if we need it, but it's not going to happen anytime soon. So please take advantage of those federal programs that are available to you now, because we will not have another round, if ever, at this point in time. To that end, friendly reminder, We only have a few people signed up for the National Restaurant Association Public Affairs Conference. It's all virtual. We set up your meetings with your congressional delegation for you. John or I are in all of those meetings, so you know they're going to be fun. And it's all virtual. Everything's on Zoom. So please take a moment to sign up for the Public Affairs Conference. We have a code. It's $50. The speakers are amazing. Really top level people from the administration, kind of giving you, this is what's going on behind the scenes within federal government. So please sign up for that. And of course, I forget where I was going with that because I just got an email about something I have to do, but register for the Public Affairs Conference. So that should wrap up my federal update. State update. CHIRP is open. That is the $145 million grant program that is in 67 counties right now. Some counties did open it up a little earlier. Some of them opened it up on Friday, but they are all under the law had to be open by Monday. So your county CHIRP programs have opened. There are a lot of questions, and I know there are a lot of questions. And the problem we have right now is that the legislation specifically says this, their state cannot tell the counties how to implement it. There's certain parameters they have to follow, the 15 million net worth, all of that, but it really is up to each county to go into details about eligibility and things like that. So please, if you do have specific questions within your county, reach out to the administrator within the county. PRLA does not have all the answers for all 67 counties. We have trends we're seeing across some counties in terms of questions, but it really is important for you to not only reach out to your counties specifically regarding questions. And Steph did put a site, a link that gives you to every single county site for the CHIRP grant. If you are planning to apply, do it yesterday. It is going to be oversubscribed. So if you have that 50% revenue loss, if you haven't received a lot of other grants throughout this process, make sure you're applying, because that 145 million is not going to go very far for tens of thousands of eligible applicants that could be applying. So make sure you're planning, you apply now if you're planning to apply for that. House tourism, huge shout out to Daryl Morris from Kalahari Resorts, Lisa Rager from Visit Johnstown, and Carl Kreider from Del Grosso's Amusement Park for testifying at the House Tourism Committee meeting on Monday. They did an amazing job of really showing and describing the impact COVID has had on the broader tourism industry. We're hearing about restaurants all the time, validly, but we also want to make sure that we're highlighting the impact COVID has had on the broader tourism industry. So we had a great meeting, laid out a lot of groundwork for that. And we are looking at potentially another hearing in the Senate that will be similar, really talking about the tourism impact that COVID has had. So stay tuned as we continue to highlight that. That's really going to be laying the groundwork for our legislative priorities. So as we need testifiers, as I'm reaching out for people to provide stories, please continue to provide us that information. Prioritize small business package. Thank you, John Longstreet, for traveling to Lancaster with one of PRLA's members, Rob Comroe. A number of state senators are introducing legislation that are essentially, as you can see, prioritize small business to provide not the huge relief, obviously, that we think we need, but a step towards relief for the industry as they've been impacted by COVID. So it's a series of 5 bills that have been introduced or will be introduced that will hopefully allow you to do things like carry over your losses, deduct depreciation, things like that, regarding COVID situation. So a focus on our smaller members, but also to try and streamline some of the tax requirements, eliminate fees, renewal fees, things like that, is all part of that small business package. So those bills will be introduced over the coming weeks. Some of them have already been introduced. Also yesterday, for all of my liquor licensees today, I've never had more kind of legislative movement in a single committee meeting as I did yesterday. The House Liquor Control Committee did meet. For those of you that did not read the daily update, which I know it's none of you, But if some of you, just skimmed over it, Chairman Pyle, who is the chairman of the House Liquor Committee, announced his retirement immediately after the meeting. He's been battling cancer for a while, and he just needs to take time to take care of him. But he has been a huge champion of the industry, very sensitive to the impact that COVID has had on licensees. And his priority was to move as many of PRLA's recovery priorities as he could before he retired. It was extremely important to him, and he did that. So yesterday, the House Liquor Control Committee moved out 5 of PRLA's, I want to say 8 liquor priorities, so it's good odds. And some of them might be more exciting than others, but the biggest one is a licensee discount. Currently, you all get a 10% licensee discount from the LCB. It will be increased to 15% for 3 years. And that 3-year clock will begin at the conclusion of the disaster declaration. Of course, my goal is to make it permanent, but it is for 3 years. It is only for those licensees that are actual restaurants or hotels. If your license is connected to a grocery store, you would not be eligible. So those grocery stores, convenience stores, since they were not impacted by COVID, are not eligible for this increase in the discount, but it is an increase in a 15% discount. Look at that. Steph, stop helping the people for my quizzes. It is a 15% discount for 3 years. For my caterers, for those of you that have your off-premise catering permits, we have another piece of legislation that eliminates the $500 renewal fee. Many of you have already paid the $500 renewal fee. Don't ask me about that because I haven't quite figured out how to deal with it yet. But if you have not applied for your off-premise catering permit, you will not, when this bill passes, you won't have to pay the $500 fee. It gets rid of the 52 event limit, so you can have as many events over the course of the year as you want. It eliminates the 5-hour cap in terms of the 5-hour cap in terms of events. So you can have events for longer than 5 hours. And there's something else in there that I'm forgetting right now, but it generally, and it will take effect beginning for 1 year again after the end of the disaster the end of the disaster declaration. So it should give all of you a little bit more flexibility for your off-premise catering permits. Extension of your licensed premise. I think Allison is from Pittsburgh. Allison's been waiting for this. It allows you to extend your licensed premise outside of an area that's contiguous to your license. So as long as it's within 1,000 feet of the end of your license. So you have a parking lot around the corner, you have a park across the street. This would allow you to extend your licensed premises to that area at no extra cost. So that was moved out of committee. Safekeeping fees, these are things that I know we don't want to think about, but unfortunately COVID still exists. If your license has to go in safekeeping because you have to close, it eliminates safekeeping fees for an additional year. The last bill allows you to sell your wine and spirits to another licensee if you do have to close your business because of COVID. So these bills moved out of committee. The full House could consider them as early as next week. So we're not to the governor yet. Our understanding is that the governor will sign these bills when they hit his desk, which is, always good news after we took it to the chin last year. So our hope is to get these to the finish line sooner than later. But these really are, like I said, our COVID priorities. The legislature is moving them. They're recognizing the need to move them. So we're really excited that all of these bills came out of committee unanimously yesterday, which really speaks to the conversations you all are having and the recognition from the government that we need to move these bills to help the industry. Lots of things happening. Statewide mitigation. I don't know if he's on the call, but I have to give a shout out to Brett Seacrest from Lancaster. Brett, thank you for this. I warned him that I was going to put this in the webinar for today. So thank you for sending the prohibition ends at last on April 4th. That is when the announcement that happened on Monday takes effect. The governor did announce on Monday at around 12:30 some lifting of mitigation standards that quite honestly we requested to be lifted last month. They do not take effect until April 4th. It's midnight on April 4th. So it is Easter. So your Easter brunches can all operate at 75% capacity. So this will be in effect for Easter Sunday, all of these changes. So that should help you to kind of promote any of those items. The announcement, I know I'm going to get this question because we all ask this question. You know, why is it that the governor can give us an 8-hour warning before he shuts us down, but he makes us wait 20 days before he lets us reopen? I think a lot of it has to do with, one, St. Patrick's Day today and people that are just drinking Jameson throughout the day to stop the crowds from St. Patrick's Day. Two, the CDC did request no lifting of mitigation for another month. And three, we are now officially 1 full year into this hot mess. And I think the governor really wanted to, and the administration wanted to at least show that there's hope in the future regarding all of this, which is why I think the announcement was made the week that we hit the 1 year mark for all of this. But we do have all of this taking effect on April 4th. In theory, you all are probably familiar with this. Restaurants, if you self-certify, can operate at 75%. You still need to utilize social distancing. Social distancing is 6 feet, not 3 feet, as of right now. That's the #1 question we've been getting. I've gotten 3 emails about that today. If you have not self-certified, you can increase to 50% capacity. Bar seating is allowed. I know it says in the announcement bar service. It is bar seating. So you will be able, and a lot of these nitty-gritty questions you're all going to give me, a lot of them we don't have the answer for yet because it doesn't take effect until April 4th. So they haven't updated that FAQ document that we all tend to pore over whenever an announcement is made. But our understanding is bar seating will be allowed. I am presuming, again, putting my, if I were in the mind of the governor hat, that it will be 6 feet social distancing between chairs, or those bar barriers, those bar blocks you all invested in back when we were in the green phase, and then in July were promptly taken away from you. So we believe that will be the standard. We will let you know once we get confirmation regarding the governor's office on that. Meal requirement. I don't know if she might be on. I have to give a huge shout out because on April 4th, I will no longer be able to use my key line of you can't get COVID if you order beer or chicken fingers with your beer. And I got to give Gretchen, one of our awesome members, a shout out because she made me a necklace with that phrase on it because it's been kind of my common phrase during this entire process. So thank you, Gretchen, for the necklace. I'm going to wear it every day for possibly forever. But on April 4th, I will no longer have to say that line. So the meal requirement will go away. And the 11 p.m. Last call will also be eliminated. Now, don't get excited for my Philadelphia friends. This doesn't apply to you yet. We'll get to that in a minute. You still are going to be subject to the same standards as of now. And then for events, I don't understand the issue they have with our indoor events, but events are increasing to 25%. I think we all think it should be 50% indoor. It's at 25. Outdoor is 50%. As we put on here, clarifying guidance is forthcoming. If I were to guess, I would say for if you don't have a fire code occupancy outdoors, you'd be looking at 50 people per 1,000 square feet. That would be 50% to me. But I don't know because that 67 per 1,000 was out there once upon a time. So all of these clarifying information that we need, we hope to have shortly. And as you can see, we do have our next meeting with the administration on next Wednesday. John's going to be handling that meeting. I'm taking the day off. So if you need me, I will be drinking a vodka martini on the beach at 11 a.m. But John's going to be handling that meeting. And we will be asking them to those questions or asking them to update the guidance at that meeting if they don't have that completed by next Wednesday. So we big step this week. That announcement was a big step, but we know we have a ways to go, especially for events. And we recognize that, and that's going to continue to be our focus with the administration moving forward. For my Philadelphia friends, Dr. Farley, who is just full of rainbows and sunshine, he's commented that he thought it was a terrible idea that Pennsylvania was lifting mitigation and said that the city will be looking at the changes and deciding if they're going to implement anything he didn't sound very enthusiastic about it. So right now, Philadelphia, I wouldn't plan for a ton of changes on April 4th, but we're hoping that we will see some for all of you on April 4th. Speaking of Philadelphia, Philadelphia is moving forward with the extension of their emergency paid leave. As I mentioned, for my friends in Philadelphia, we did get a reset of that federal paid leave, which is extended until September. So we're hoping that with a few more clarifications from the administration that we'll be able to ensure that you are exempted and be able to use that tax credit, but you are not exempted from providing paid leave completely in Philadelphia. So if you have an employee that needs to quarantine or has COVID, you need to provide the paid leave in Philadelphia when this bill passes. Now you can utilize the tax credit so you don't have that financial hit, but you will not have the option not to provide paid leave if you are over 50 employees in Philadelphia. That will be taking effect. It's probably going to be passed this week in council. The mayor will sign it and it is effective immediately. So please stay tuned for that. Please make sure that as your employees are needing leave, you are providing it to them. If you are above 500 employees and you don't have the tax credit opportunity available to you, you need to provide it out of pocket, up to 80 hours of paid leave for your employees under the emergency extension in Philadelphia. Allegheny, I am so popular today. Allegheny County, things have been happening in Allegheny County. Last week, County Council passed with a vote of 10-4 mandated paid sick leave in Allegheny County. We talked about this last week. It applies to everybody in Allegheny, but not in the city of Pittsburgh. They passed it 10-4. That same week, the county solicitor essentially sent a memo saying, we actually think you did the process wrong. We don't think you passed it legally. It needs to run through the Department of Health. Detailed words, lots of intricate statements, lawyer talk, but essentially, we think you passed this illegally and somebody could sue. Well, guess who they turned to talk about suing? It's so weird. Since then, PRLA has kind of come out publicly saying, we're not opposed if you want to have paid sick leave. We think it's valid, and a lot of cities find it to be necessary, and we're not opposed to that. We are opposed to if you pass it illegally, and if you don't push back on something like that. Due to that, that kind of us warning that it is something we'll look at a legal challenge at just to make sure it's done properly. The Allegheny County Executive Rich Fitzgerald vetoed the bill yesterday. So we're waiting to see what happens in Allegheny County. This does not make paid sick leave go away. It just means that it won't take effect in as early as 90 days if the county doesn't override his veto. If they override his veto, we'll figure out where to go from there. But really in Allegheny County, we're trying to highlight the process to make sure it's done properly and legally. And if they do that, then PRLA has no issues with the bill in and of itself, recognizing that it is something that we should all try to be offering our employees. So that's kind of where we are locally. I think I have a ton of questions. So I will turn it over to Hope for upcoming events.
Great. Thank you, Melissa. So we do have some chapter meetings coming up. So please be sure to go to our website under the calendar of events, and you can register for whichever region you would like to attend. These are great meetings we do have in the Northeast. Dr. Sheff will be there again talking about vaccinations. We do have guest speakers at other events. So please check out upcoming things going on in your chapter. And next week, Melissa slightly mentioned she won't be here next week for the webinar, but we do have a guest speaker. You're not getting off from the industry update. So we will have Mike Watley with the NRA to give you a national update and talk about things that have been going on our national level. And John Longstreet will be on the call later on to talk if you have any questions about mitigation or things that are going on in the state. And Melissa will be back the next week. So we are giving her one Wednesday off after a year of Wednesday updates. When I mentioned that to you, that one Wednesday, I didn't think it was going to be a year you'd be doing this, but here we are. We do have some other webinars that are coming up. One about the ERTC. I know we've had a bunch of webinars, but you may have some more questions, so please check that out tomorrow. They'll be discussing, qualifications, examples, and how you can be saving money. There's another one coming up on the 23rd where the editors of Restaurant Business will be discussing the pandemic 1 year later. Industry trends, good and bad, how menus have changed, technology. So if you have some time, please check that out. And then on the 26th, the tourism office will be talking about some survey results from the tourism consumer sentiment survey. So please be sure to look at that. Next slide. Carry out PA, obviously, we're always promoting that for you to make sure that you're as up to date as possible. We are doing a promotion today for Giving Green on St. Patrick's Day. We do have some promotional tools that we've put together to spread the word with your customers. We've shared it already on our social media platforms, so please share if you can. We are trying to keep this application for HARP going all year long, and this is the way that we can keep spreading the word to the customers on how they could be supporting the industry. And lastly, training solutions. As always, our calendar is up to date on ServSafe. And scholarship program is still open until April 1st, so please be sure to spread that word to students that are looking to pursue post-secondary work. And Melissa, I have one question for you, and it was something I sent you on email. For the DUNS accounts and the SAMS accounts, if anybody has questions on setting those accounts up, who should they be reaching out to?
Well, they should watch the webinar from NRA, and then I believe NRA is going to be putting together some video tutorials on it. I think they're still trying to get some questions answered on that front.
Okay, great, thanks. Oh, I'm done.
All right. I don't want Molly to yell at me anymore. All right, let's get to some questions. Good. So it is working. Stacy says regarding RRF, she applied yesterday for her DUNS number, suggested a Monday's call, and received the number immediately via email. Next step is the SAM account today. This is delicious, by the way. Here, and Steph gave the link for the SAMS account. My back meetings will be more fun, but I'll try to do my best. John, thank you. I have to say, I was on a call earlier and all of the destination marketing organizations were upset because I wasn't very festive. And I said, just wait till 11. I'm going to come in hot. So I am festive for the day now. I'll take a nap after this is over. Thinking I know the answer, but have they said anything about butts and seats requirement? It's going to continue. Butts and seats are still going to be out there. Like I said, we are waiting for them to update the FAQ. I think it's going to take some time. And as you all know, when they update the FAQ, I'm going to ask them about 16 more questions to clarify the FAQ. But the butts and seats requirement is going to continue as part of this. So for our standing cocktails are not yet happening regarding this, but you can flock to the bar as long as you are socially distanced and you are seated at the bar. Off the top of your lucky head, any idea if the RRF includes eligibility for hotels that have restaurants? The restaurant would be. I think the restaurant would be. The hotel itself would not be, but the restaurant within the hotel would be. Like I said, we need to see the guidance, but it's very broad in terms of RRF, in terms of eligibility. If you're serving food and beverage, you're eligible. If you're a caterer, if you're a brewery. So I don't think the hotel itself, but the restaurant within the hotel will be there. Let's see if I can, and I will show, just in an effort to show this off. Oh, I don't have it on here. Never mind. I was going to show you. Here we go. I just uploaded the necklace that Gretchen made for me. That is the most beautiful necklace I've ever received. If anybody wants to look at that while I'm going through all of these questions. Thank you. Thank you for talking me off the ledge last week. You're welcome, Maggie. Back to the 25 per 1,000 thing, probably premature to ask this, but any idea if that number will go up again, because literally everything is going up on 4.4. Yes, I do expect the 25 per 1,000 is going to increase. We don't know what the standard is going to be for that. If it's going, I'm telling you, I've never been so popular. If I were to guess, I'd say 50 per 1,000, but we don't know for sure. So we will get that outdoor calculation hopefully sooner than later. Oh, I'm sorry. In the NRA webinar, I was referring to the one that happened on 3/15. So if you definitely watch that webinar, if you did the previous webinar with NRA, you can probably skip the first 20 minutes because a lot of it's rehashing. But the SAMs and DUNS account setups are all, I want to say, at the 30-minute mark-ish on the webinar. And yes, 6 feet of spacing remains in place after 4/4. They are still saying social distancing. As far as we know, it is 6 feet. I know there is everything out there asking about 3 feet. There is no discussion within the administration allowing for 3 feet of social distancing. So we're hoping that we will be able to have more barriers outside of just the barriers behind your booths, because you can have barriers there, but not anywhere else outside of the bar. We're hoping to get some clarification on that, but 6 feet is still going to be the name of the game for your indoor spacing. Great news. Oh, Shelley, I jumped ahead to your question. I'm sorry. Great news that we are finally moving in the right direction with bar service now. Okay, thoughts on a private cocktail hour without seats for everyone in attendance. Still, like I said, we expect the butts and seats to continue at least through this round of mitigation, and we certainly hope that it will end after that, but we still expect that to continue. I'm back to Molly yelling at me for not drinking. For those of us lucky enough to have received a second draw P3, question regarding forgivable expenditures for perishable goods. The language says forgivable if purchased pursuant to a contract or order in effect during the covered period. So do I have to have a contract or order to buy chicken and vegetables, etc.? And does that mean I can't shop for perishable goods at the cheaper warehouse restaurant supply houses like Restaurant Depot or Jetro, where you simply walk up and down the aisle with your cart, picking up chicken, meat, veg, frozen items, etc. No contracts, no ordering in advance. If I can't shop there, do I have to purchase perishable goods from the more expensive Cisco and US Foods, where I can put an order online and get delivery or pickup, both of which are way more expensive than the restaurant warehouse suppliers? And this be fixed through your excellent lobbying. So here's the situation with forgivable expenses, and don't let them tell you that they can't give you an answer. It's up to your bank at the end of the day. The SBA is giving the guidance, and the bank determines if it's forgivable or not. Because let's keep in mind that you're applying through the bank. The bank is the one that reviews your expenditures and says this is valid to the SBA, and the SBA goes, okay, the loan is forgiven. So if your bank says that you can go to Costco or you can go to Restaurant Depot and purchase your product there, then you're fine. But the bank is the decision maker for that. And I know that's frustrating because banks are giving different things, and we can help you in some ways on that front, but it's up to your bank. And some banks are allowing it and some aren't. So I'd urge you to talk to your bank. If you already self-certified once, you need to do it again before April 4th. No, if you have self-certified, you're already certified. You can go to 75% beginning April 4th. Ah, yes, Susan, thank you for asking this question. I forgot to mention this. Will mixed drinks to go still be allowed, since then those who self-certified will open at 75% capacity? So when I wrote the mixed drinks to go bill on my birthday of last year, I wrote it more brilliantly than I thought I did. So I had to double check it. You can still do mixed drinks to go after April 4th. It's written that it says you can do mixed drinks to go as long as the disaster declaration is in existence, or if after the disaster declaration we're above 60%. Because at the time I was concerned the disaster declaration would end, but we would still be mitigated to some extent. So as long as we have the disaster declaration, you can continue to do cocktails to go. Now, if it goes away, then we lose the ability because we would be above 60%. We literally, that might be why my phone is ringing so much, are filing legislation today to make mixed drinks to go permanent. So my hope is that we will have it permanent before you have to worry about it going away. But the April 4th deadline or April 4th mitigation change does not impact your ability to do mixed drinks to go. Appreciate the move to 75%, definitely step in the right direction and a way to build customer confidence. For my restaurant, it really only permits us to add 4 2-top tables and still maintain social distancing. We don't have barriers up. Waiting for the venue change. I have a 5,000 square foot venue that seats 520, and I am up to allowing 130 guests. Hope this changes further by summer and fall. I would say, Stacy, I mean, for all of you, this is not, I don't want us to go into this April 4th announcement thinking nothing's going to happen for months afterwards. I don't think that's the case. I think that my hope is that we will hit May and we will see an increase in terms of event capacity above that 25 as long as case counts continue to go down. Now, 75% social distancing, I don't know if I'm going to see that by May. But keep in mind that this is not this is happening and we expect nothing to change for 6 more months. We expect the needle to continue to move towards opening and allowing more events, hopefully every month moving forward until we're back to a comfortable place. Yes, Hannah had to take a call, but yes, to clarify, you will be able to serve customers until your traditional close time after April 4th. So beginning on April 4th, if you can serve alcohol until 2 a.m. I mean, the laws still apply. This isn't a free-for-all. You can't go to 24-hour alcohol service, but you can serve alcohol until 2 a.m. You can serve food as long as you normally do, but the 11 p.m. last call for alcohol will end on April 4th. Has there been any discussion update about Philadelphia lifting the ventilation certification to get to 50% indoors? Do we know if the city has been enforcing inspecting this? Philadelphia is a hot mess. Our hope is that with this state change, it will cause some change for the HVAC. If he hasn't put it in already, Ben will probably load it in there. Of the people who have applied for the HVAC standards, 93 of 6,000 restaurants have applied and been approved. I think we had 1 women-owned business. Most of them are in Center City. So clearly the HVAC standards, despite what some people are saying, are people just not wanting to just don't want to go above 25%, are not working. So we have a call on Friday to try and push the needle on that, especially with the state going to 75-50. We're hoping to eliminate those standards. I can tell you it's been frustrating because Dr. Farley is not budging. And like I said, this week, he even didn't seem happy with Pennsylvania lifting some of those standards. But we hope to have some movement on that in terms of eliminating the HVAC standards for many of you, because we know it's impossible for many of you to be compliant with that. For further details on bar barriers, we are looking, Liz, we're looking to clarify that a little bit more. We're hoping logically that we'll return to the same standards. So if a bar barrier or bar block is in place, you do not need 6 feet of social distancing. So it's 6 feet or a barrier. Like I said, we do need to wait for the clarification because I never like to say that I'm right, especially with this administration. But our assumption is going to be that you can use the barriers at the bar, because we know for a lot of you, 6 feet social distancing at the bar means you get 4 seats at the bar if you have a big bar. We recognize that, and we believe that they will recognize that as well. But that is a conversation that will be had with the governor's office next week. Can we have lines at the bar? Yes, if socially distanced. Yes, and yes. You can do bar service, but they can't stand at the bar and drink at the bar. They have to go up to the bar and get their drink and go and sit down. So you can have lines with people leading up to the bar. They need to be socially distanced. So that the prohibition banner we put up earlier, don't do what that did. It was just kind of being excited that you can actually sit at the bar again. In your crystal ball, is there any hope for this emergency order to end this year so we can all go back to 100%? Well, it could end. I mean, it could end in May, depending on how this voter referendum goes. If the power of the governor to declare an emergency declaration goes away, that doesn't necessarily mean we're going back to 100%, because there's still the question of the Secretary of Health's power. But other states are going to 100%. So I think we're going to get there this year. I don't think it's going to be this spring. I don't think it's going to be early summer. I mean, if we hit it by August or September, 100% no social distancing, I think that would be thrilling. But I wouldn't expect it in the near future, especially not right now, with Pennsylvania doing a terrible job in terms of vaccination and with the variants that are spreading. But I think we will get there. Yes, you do have to be seated to drink alcohol. The rules, you cannot, and that is inclusive of food too. You can't stand and consume any food or beverage. People need to be seated if they are consuming food and beverage. That is unchanged in the updated guidance. And I think I answered the cocktails to go question. Shuttered venue applicants also have to register for SAMs. There's a tutorial. Thank you, Allison, for registering for SAM registration on SBA's website under the SVO grant. So there is a link. Thank you, Allison, for sharing that for those of you that are registering for SAMs for the RRF. And Ben did put a link to the Philadelphia restaurants that are meeting the enhanced ventilation requirements. And I think this Jameson makes me speak a lot faster. So we're very efficient today. I have 14 minutes to spare. So any other questions? Okay.
All right. Thank you, Melissa. And your hat is wonderful. You look gorgeous. And thank you, John. And thank you, everybody, for joining us today. I hope you all have a happy St. Patrick's Day. As always, we have recorded this. We will put this out on our website and send it out to all of you to enjoy later on today. And with that, have a safe day. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, Hope. Thanks, Melissa. Thank you all.